Producer, Alex Coco. Producer, Samantha Quan. Best Actress nominee, Mikey Madison. Writer, director, editor, producer, Sean Baker. Full house, guys.
Yeah.
Still going
Hi,
strong.
everybody. Hello. Thanks for coming out.
Sean, how does a four-time personal Oscar nominee sound right now for you?
It's incredible. I'm still processing it. I'm still processing QandA, so it's going to be a while until I can fully process this one. It's wonderful, and the fact that I think the editing thing means a lot to me. The editing now, because they all do, obviously, but the edit, for me, the editing is such a vital part. I consider it, a third of my process, of my vision. The writing, directing, editing, it all, it makes the whole. So to be recognized for that is really special.
You make your films independently. This was your largest scale film, and by that I mean well under $10 million. And I am curious, going from QandA to where we are now, the incredible success this film has had, what it means to you that it is this movie. You've been making films for many years, how you've sort of wrapped your head around this film receiving such a intense embrace.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's difficult to answer. Let's just say I had the most incredible team. And so I really am happy that the incredible work that they did is being recognized. My cast and crew did it for me, So it's really, it warms my heart to know that this team is being recognized for this work, I guess, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Mikey, how about for you? How has the last 6 months, 7 months been on this ride with this film? I would imagine even just getting to talk about it and experience people's reactions deepens your relationship to it a little bit.
Well, hi everyone. Thank you so much for being here. It's been so interesting. I've never quite done anything like this before, and we've been able to go to so many interesting places and premiere our film in different countries and get such a wide variety of responses. And so I'm really lucky to have this experience with this film in particular, because it's one that's always been very, very special to me. So it's been a whirlwind. It simultaneously feels like it's gone by really quickly and then also slowly too at times. So it's been wonderful.
Samantha and Alex, I wonder if you could maybe take us back to the beginnings of mounting this film, what the initial challenges were in terms of production, in terms of getting this thing off the ground, making it as you needed to make it, because even though, again, this was a slightly larger scale for you guys and you worked together before, it's still an independent film that you had to really fight to get the vision as you hoped for.
We never have enough money on these films, so we know going in that we're gonna have to figure it out and get creative, we budgeted as best we could, knowing we were gonna have to find room, in every phase, get creative at every phase. But as Sean sort of, touched on, we just had such an incredible, committed crew to this, on this film that everybody was just so gung-ho and just trying to make every bit work along the way, So we were really grateful for that.
Yeah, working with Sean, there's always a lot of surprises along the way that are really hard to budget for. But we also think that with that room that there is for surprises and serendipity, that's what also kind of makes the movie special. So we used a lot of our funds to get more days, which is something that's really important, is time. And yeah, we had a small crew. We interviewed everyone individually, met every single person, because even one toxic person can ruin the whole thing, especially in such a small crew. And even though it was hard, it was a joy. At the end of every day, we would go home and be like, "Oh my gosh, we did this day," and then we wake up for the next one.
Yeah, but we're really proud of that. Like what we can put on the screen, and being one of the lowest budgeted Best Picture nominations this year. It's like, it means something to us, like we don't have the resources that everybody does. So to be able to make something that's in that, at the same, being nominated for the same award as Wicked, it's like all right. Not sure why those things are on the same level, but
What were some of the biggest surprises that Sean threw at you this time around?
One was, there were so many. But one of them was, there are Russians in this film, but he wanted Russians from Russia at the beginning of a war, which was a challenge. There was a shot that it was from the air. It was funny. He was like, "Oh, I want this one from the air." And then we were like, "Oh, okay." And he's like, "But I don't want a drone. I want a helicopter because I want it to feel like it's 1974. We said, "Okay." What else?
yeah. So then I got up there in a helicopter with a camera operator, and that's not a joke. That's actually done. And we got the shot, and it worked, So that shot where Mikey and Mark Edelstein, who's Yvonne, are on the patio, and we see the city in the background at the end of the montage. But yeah, no, yeah, Sean likes to rewrite.
It could be argued that shot could be done with a drone, okay? But I wanted to have that organic feel. It's a zoom. You can feel the camera operator doing that. It's a zoom and then a pull out with the helicopter. That's the way it used to be done. That, The World Is Yours, Scarface, that shot, that's what I was going for. Drew, I always tell my wonderful cinematographer, Drew Daniels, that even though these films are contemporary and these stories are about now, I want it to feel like classic Hollywood. I want it to feel like 1974, the best year of cinema.
And this film has some direct references to classic films. One of the things I love about this movie is some of them are a little bit more obvious, some of them are very subtle, and they exist right alongside incredibly original script and incredibly original filmmaking. How do you figure out that balance on a movie like this?
Well, some of them are just not, and some of them are acknowledged. Like, I thank Jess Franco and Soledad Miranda in the end credits, because The Red Scarf definitely was influenced by the work they did together on Vampire Lesbos and She Kills in Ecstasy. So that, it's true. But the other stuff, kind of I realized later, to tell you the truth. And a lot of them were 80s references that I realized were subconscious nods. For example, I realize now how close this is to, or how there are similarities to Coming to America. Galena coming off that airplane is very similar to James Earl Jones saying, "Take me to the Waldorf Astoria." So, it's stuff like that. And I think it's just because, these films meant a lot to me growing up, and I still watch a film a day. I'm a cinephile. And as a filmmaker, it's hard not for those influences to come out in some way.
You cast your films, and it's a very important part of your process as well. Over the years of making movies, how have you figured out being an actor's director, figuring out the relationship you want to have with your actors, and then how did that inform your work with, say, Mikey and Anora?
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, my first film, I was basically going, okay, let's do it again, and better this time. Or do good in this one. It took me a long time, because it's not stuff I was taught in school. So it took me making several films. And I think around Prince of Broadway, where I was able to really, and no, maybe Charles Jang on Takeout, which was my second feature, is when I was able to really spend time with my main actor and start to figure out how, to communicate about the craft, about what will make the best performance. And that led up to now, where Mikey and I really had a lot of time in prep to really talk about things and break it down. And then we also had a wonderful time rehearsing, which is something that now we buy time for to allow for way more rehearsal and prep, just to give us that one-on-one, to give me the one-on-one with my actors, and have time to workshop, so that we know they know their characters, I know their characters before we start, before day one.
How would you, Mikey, describe Sean as a collaborator on this movie?
I've never worked with someone quite like Sean, and I mean that in a really complimentary, positive way. He is a true collaborator. He really welcomed me into the making of this film in a bigger way than I had ever been asked to be a part of before. He really cared about my opinion. He wanted me to be a part of lots of aspects of making this movie. And so I remember the first meeting, sitting down with him, Sean and Sammy. Sean was like, "So, is there anything you want to do in this movie?" And it was such a shocking question to me, because no one had ever asked me that before, let alone like want to write a film with me in mind. And it was so, I had no idea what to say. I was like, I don't know, I'm not sure. And it took me a little bit to really, maybe like a couple weeks, to really feel comfortable enough to like share my opinions, because I had never been, I don't know, I never had that experience before. But he's, I could keep talking and talking about Sean as a director, because he's really one of the most special people I've ever worked with. He has a wicked sense of humor that is really just like makes me laugh, and he's very kind, sensitive director, very like gentle director. Sorry, that's embarrassing, I don't know. And just very trusting. He really trusts his actors to deliver their performance and really bring to life their characters. And I always knew that he was there to guide me along. Like if I strayed too far, he'd be able to reel me back in. And I felt like it was a true collaboration between us. And it was wonderful.
Was there a moment where you're like, I don't know how he's going to feel about this, when you went into a given scene?
No, because I think that, I had done so much work on this character. I knew exactly who she was, and Sean, I never felt that way. I was always willing to take extreme risks or really go for a joke, and if it doesn't work out, then it doesn't work out, but at least you've tried, or whatever you feel in the moment you have to do. I felt free enough and comfortable enough to do that. I knew there would be no judgment, it would just be support. But I would sometimes definitely be like going off the rails in terms of improvisation, and like the Drew, our cinematographer, sometimes in my foreground the camera would be shaking because he was like laughing, and I was like, okay, maybe I'm like going too far in a different direction.
Probably tells you it's working though, right?
I don't know. Sean says that sometimes when people are laughing on set, then it's not going to be funny.
If they're laughing too hard, yeah. But we had actually our sound recordist was a Russian speaker, and so was our script supervisor. So sometimes I would look to them, and if they were chuckling, I knew that at least the Russian stuff was working. But I just wanted to also say that it's because my incredible cast was so just so talented and brought so much to the table that it made my job easy. And I've never seen an actor put in as much work as Mikey put into this role. I mean, starting months and months early with everything to prep on every level, it really showed true dedication, and that's a gift. That's an absolute gift to a filmmaker, to have an actor who is just as dedicated as you are to the project.
You can feel, for all the actors, this incredible space, I think, for you guys to discover your characters, try different things. I wonder, even on the production side, how you guys experience giving the actors the space within the limited constraints you have to discover and to find these performances over time.
Well, that's the luxury of time.
Yeah.
That's the reason why it was so important for us to use as much, to get more money than we had before, to be able to have that time so that the actors could spend time with each other, spend time in the environments, work with Sean, you know, and not feel rushed of like, you can only do one take and then that's it. You know, some people make movies in like 10 days. And it's amazing that they do it. But we feel like the more time you have, the deeper things get. For us anyways, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like half my job in terms of the actors, and with Mikey especially, was just like trying to just like make sure she's okay, you know, like the how hard she worked, you know, and like the turnaround that she had, like, you know, after the end of production, started the next day to get into the makeup chair to put those the tinsel or whatever in her hair and everything.
3 hours or
Yeah, she wasn't sleeping. Like I was like just trying to make sure that she was like, you know, she was good, you know, but I don't know, fucking warrior here. You know, like,
Mikey she never complained. Sometimes like it'd just be like, are you okay? She'd be like, uh-huh. And you're just like, really? Are you? You can tell me. And she's like, I'm okay. You know? But like she was
good. I
losing
don't know.
fingernails.
She did, yeah. She always kept
Mikey did her own stunts.
She did,
All her
yeah.
own stunts.
She insisted on doing all of her own stunts. Between the accent and the Russian language, which was hard enough, but then I remember the day that she came in and she said, you know, because the one scene where she's dancing, it literally was a scene that was written. She goes to Yvonne's house and she shows
Shows off her dancer's flexibility.
Yeah, that was it. That was like one line. And then Mikey comes in, she's like, I prepared something, do you want to see? We're like, yeah, sure. She came in and it was like, oh my God.
I choreographed the dance.
Yeah, and like a professional, and we're just like, this needs to be focused on. It was incredible.
That's actually, that shows the collaboration, because that scene would have been 10 seconds. And instead, what Mikey presented to us, we looked at it, and then Drew and I knew that we had to go a different direction and make a set piece out of it. A music video almost.
With the extra time and that priority, not necessarily compromises you had to make, but what were some of the things that you knew you would have to do faster or differently or even cheaper than maybe if you didn't get those extra days? What was the trade-off, I suppose?
We didn't have great food. You know, like a lot of that stuff was, we were like, you know what? We're okay as long as the crew's okay and we're okay. We would, you know, I mean, everyone would eat, and we'd never had anyone be uncomfortable, but we did as much as we could to make sure that our limited budget was all on the screen.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's some producers in the room. You just gotta make deals. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you just gotta.
Favors.
Yeah, you just gotta try to get things for what you can afford and try to get them to the number, and then if you can't, then figure out some solution. But then also invest in things that are gonna make the movie better too. You know, so sometimes you have to spend a little bit more on something that you wouldn't ordinarily, like, you know, like the private airplanes and these things. Like, these are big ticket, you know, locations and whatnot. So money had to go in those places, but then there was other places where we were very cheap. You know, like when we were running around Brighton Beach Ave, you know, looking for Yvonne, like we're just on the street, just like grabbing, stealing, like just going to locations that didn't know we were shooting, just like surprising people, asking for forgiveness, asking for releases after the fact. You know, it's like very much a guerrilla style filmmaking, which is very fun because, you know, Sean with his roots, it's like we're able to, you know, yes, it's more money, but still not that much, but we're still able to take these like tangerine tactics and do them at this level, and then spend on other scenes, you know, so there's like, it's a great combination for me. It's like exciting that we're not graduating to a point where we can't have this flexibility, where we can still maintain this sort of independent, run and gun, sort of indie sensibility, but just with a little bit more money, where we have a little more flexibility. that excites me the most. Yeah.
And you
feel the
take-
energy in the movie.
Yeah, I was going to say you take opportunities when you get them. Like we were 9 months early when we were first doing our first trip out to Brighton Beach. We were out there, and it just happened to be that Euro was in town, so we brought Euro out to Brighton Beach and did the whole tour. And we were in Tatiana's, which is this iconic restaurant on the boardwalk that we shot at. And suddenly he's the one swarmed because they know his work from overseas. He's a star. And suddenly it was in that moment while everybody was taking photos, and we looked at the owner and we're like, can we shoot a movie here with him, please? So yeah, he got us that location.
You mentioned feeling pretty gratified by the editing nomination. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about your process there, because it's pretty unique in that you take time after you shoot the film before you get into the editing. So why do you do that, and what does that do for you in the process of, say, making Anora?
Yeah, well, yes, and I've had the luxury to do this with all my films, so it's something that we work into the schedule. We had a year to edit because of the Cannes deadline, so I take about 3 months off, and that allows me to get enough distance from the film where I almost forget what I shot, and then I get back into it, and I edit from the first shot, first frame. I don't do an assemble. I go right to almost to a fine cut, and I won't move on to the next scene until I've polished the scene I'm on, including temp sound design and everything, just so I feel the film growing and I can see it evolve in front of us. Also, it allows me with this film, especially in which I was playing with tonal shifts and almost genre shifts. I needed to feel that. I needed to feel the pacing and the flow and see if that stuff would be working. We go some places to sometimes to very broad comedy places, almost sitcom level and like in the courtroom and stuff. But I wouldn't probably know that unless I saw the film play out up to that point. So that's my process. It's insane. It's insane, and I drive them crazy because they won't know whether we have a good film or not on our hands until the last day of the edit when I put that last scene on. Yeah, but it's also wonderful to work with Sam and Coco because we're all on the same page. They understand my sensibility. They are wonderful writers themselves, and and they're the only ones I share the edit with. There's no test screenings or anything like that, and so nobody sees it until nobody sees the final until after they've seen it, and they're with me the whole way, giving me notes and being there to encourage and great feedback. So yeah, it's a pleasure to work with these two.
And what's really cool about the way we do it, we're not like in like a fancy edit suite or something, we're like, not to say that's a bad thing, but we're not, that's not, like Florida Project, Red Rocket, he had it in his bedroom. Yeah,
it was in our bedroom.
Yeah,
before.
so we would sit on
the
their bed, and I would watch, we would watch and give notes, and luckily now we have a second apartment, or they have a second apartment, so it's like a work apartment, but it's still very much like that, it's like editing at night and just like really casual, and yeah, I mean, for me, it's like making movies when I was in high school, it feels like that, like just like, just staying up late on the weekend and like editing a movie with your friends, like that's, but I think that's
what Simon said at the Spirit Awards with Red Rocket.
Yeah,
what did he say? The most...
he said it was like a glorified student
The
film.
glorified student film.
But Sean is a night editor, so usually he doesn't start until 9, 10, 11 o'clock. So we go into the morning. That's why it
till
feels...
dawn. Dusk till dawn.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not healthy.
These are the best glorified student films I've ever seen. Mikey, I wanted to ask you about getting to the last scene of the film. I think so much of the power of your performance is we see this very outspoken character, says what she thinks, but she's still holding a lot inside. And I know you've talked about feeling yourself holding a lot inside, getting to toward that scene. What did it feel like to have that emotional release, and what was the experience like for you of actually getting to that emotional release?
Yeah, well, I always thought of Annie as someone who, like, yes, she's outspoken, but it's all a protective layer. Everything she's doing is to protect herself and how she really feels, which I think is a lot of heartbreak and frustration and vulnerability. But you know, she's keeping it in. She's this hardened outer shell on top. She doesn't want anyone to see that crack open, because I think she's also trying to hold on to like just a bit of dignity as well. And so for that last scene, she's gone through so much over the course of a short period of time, and she hasn't like expressed any of it really. And so coming to this last scene, it's this shared moment between two people who are finally able to communicate in an honest way, but just without any words spoken. And so like, how do you go about filming something like that? And you know, Sean and I had many conversations about this scene, and it was one that I was really nervous about, because I wanted to do her justice. I wanted her to have that moment of release, and I think I was just so frustrated and like stuck in my head about it that there came a point during the filming of that scene, which like took many days for lots of different reasons, where I was like, I just got out of the car and I was like, I need to talk to Sammy. And Sammy and I started having a conversation, and I remember I was like actually like crying tears, and I was like, I can't cry. And she was like, okay, well, you're crying right now. She's like, well, let's talk about something. And I was like, you know, I think I just need to ground myself in a different way. I need to pull something from my own personal life that I think is just gonna, you know, sharpen that internal razor blade so that I can express everything. And yeah, it's talking about this scene, it's like, I feel like my face gets hot and I get sweaty talking about it, because it was really vulnerable. And especially playing a character like Annie, like as Mikey, I'm a very outwardly emotional person, but she is not. It's only in those private moments you get to see that. And so, you know, Sean is in the back seat of the car with the monitor, and Yura's there, and I was like, gosh, I think I need to pull something. And so I have this very lovely voicemail that my dad sent me years ago that I have kept, and he sent to me just at a time that I really needed to hear specific words from my father. And I was like, okay, Sean, we'll hold the phone and you'll play it right before we shoot the scene, and then we'll shoot it. And so very embarrassing, because I'm like sitting in a car with these two guys and listening to this voicemail my dad sent me. But I think it was actually kind of really beautiful, because it grounded all of us. I think it's for them to hear something so intimate and personal to me, for me to listen to it and then also have it shared with two people. It sort of just, it worked in this magic way and was able to, I don't know, just get me to a raw place where we were able to shoot that scene, and it felt really, really real. I think I'm rambling now.
You did do her justice in that moment, I think. We are going to kindly ask you to stay in your seats just while we